He presented me in front of his friends. I was very scared. He tried to sacrifice me, but I ran away from there.
What is a freak off? The freak off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism.
He had everything to do with what she was wearing. She said she would buy outfits from sex shops and see which one he wanted her to wear. And then inside the actual hotel rooms of their apartments where the freak offs took place, she said that Combs was in charge of lighting. It began with candles. It then moved to studio lighting.
They might say she's lying, but that's going to be a little hard to do with that video.
At the start of the day, Diddy's family showed up to court once again, standing strong and composed. Still, his twin daughters, Jessie and Delilah, left looking downcast, barely saying a word. Also present were his sons, King and Justin, along with his mother, Janice. Please step aside, please. Everyone, move over, watch yourselves, watch your step. Big help, thanks. Shout out to NYU, let's get some room, please. Back up a bit. Golden, that's a great smile. All right, please move to the side. Yeah, step back. Make some space. Back up. Take care, man. Day 2 of Diddy's trial has now wrapped. The prosecution had some strong moments, but it wasn't a total win. Yet, by the end of the day, something major happened. Something that could shift the direction of the entire case. And it wasn't just about the prosecution's key witness taking the stand.
The prosecution's star witness taking the stand, but it was more than that. It was how Cassie took that stand. You could hear a pin drop when those doors opened, and a visibly pregnant Cassie Ventura walking past a man she had not seen in 6.5 years. A man she says violently abused her for a decade. A man the prosecution said trafficked her. Well, she sat across from him, placed her overcoat behind her, turning her body slightly toward the jury, rubbing her pregnant belly throughout her testimony. Diddy, well, he was more fidgety than he was the day before. He was passing notes. He pushed himself away from the defense table and largely sat like that. They never seemed to make eye contact with one another, not even after she was crying about having loved him once and planning and participating in these freak-off sex parties because she feared him and she wanted to make him happy, but feeling worthless, feeling disgusting because she didn't want to do it. Now, with each moment, the testimony became more and more graphic. Her delivery, though, it never changed. It was matter of fact, steady, calm. At times, she was even critical of herself, walking us all through how a 10-album record deal came over a 10-year period of abuse and sexual humiliation. And once you hear Cassie's testimony, you'll understand why the courtroom was so tense.
Let's break it down. Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie, took the stand and didn't hold back. She testified that Diddy had made threats against her in the past, including using intimate footage as leverage if she didn't do what he wanted. She called them freak-off videos.
Diddy's trial's second day has ended, and while the prosecution had
entertainment business, or was it something more sinister, something criminal? By the way, there's a poll running right now. You can weigh in. Do you think Cassie Ventura was complicit in all this, or was she a victim? The real question is, are you ready for the truth?
That's what makes him unique, though.
Sure, but is that what he's doing? Is he running an entertainment and fashion industry, or is he running essentially a criminal organization?
By the way, we have a poll up right now. You can participate in it. Do you think Cassie Ventura was a victim or partner in this? Ready for this? 82%. Well, this doesn't make sense. 82% say yes. I don't know if that's yes to, I think we need clarification. 82% say victim or partner. We'll get a clarification on that.
By the way,
right now.
But that's my answer to that question.
Oh, okay. 82% say victim. 82% say victim. Maybe based on we're reporting on the testimony right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think she is a victim if the allegations are true, but also she is involved in some of the criminal act. I mean, she's getting those prostitutes, right? She's making payments to them, allegedly. She's having them come. So she's involved in some of the alleged criminal activity. And that's an interesting point that wouldn't just apply to her. Other people in his orbit might be some combination of victim and co-conspirator.
But you know what? That video changes everything, because the argument would be, What do you think happens if she says no?
Yeah.
What do you think happens if she says, I'm not in the mood for a freak off tonight. I'm not going to pay the dancer. That's what's going to happen. That video is arguably the most important piece of evidence because it sets the stage when we're talking about coercion or fraud or force. Question from Angelina. How old was Cassie when they first started dating? I think she was 19 years old. So you're talking about a 17-year age difference. That's important. I think that's an important factor if you're talking about power and control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he's older and obviously has much more power anyway.
Sherry Williams asks, what kind of time is Diddy facing if he's found guilty?
However, Cassie didn't clearly state that Diddy threatened to release the footage unless she acted a certain way. She didn't directly tie her actions to that threat, which could have made the claim much stronger. That missing connection might have sealed the deal, but for now, it's still open-ended. The jury is left with some uncertainty as the details remain a bit unclear. Still, the idea that he may have held that kind of power over her is a serious point. Then there's Kim Porter, who, not long before her untimely death, was reportedly preparing to expose some dark truths about Diddy.
You see how Albie Shore, he came out saying that Kim Porter death needs to be looked into?
I think that Al being his ex-wife, he have every right knowing about the stuff that came out about Diddy and what he was doing. You understand what he has done in the past, and people have overlooked it. By him coming out and saying that he hoped that he could get her case reopened. There was a guy called John the Paperwork Party. They would put in an open petition to get Kim's case reopened. You understand what I'm saying? So I'll be sure doing this is showing that, you know, he still got love for Quincy's mother. He still want to find out the truth because allegedly Kim was fine the day before and the day of her death. And then now she found in the bed dead from pneumonia. That just don't sound right, bro. That don't sound right at all.
So you feel the same way about her death being suspect?
I don't think nobody in America think it's nothing suspicious about Kim's death, bro. If you are rich like that, you could, you know, Kim had, I think she's a net worth of like, what, 12 million a year or something like that? Kim could have called any doctor to come over and look at her. If she was that bad, you know, she could have called an ambulance or something like that. Everything is suspicious about her death, bro. And I don't think an autopsy was done on her. And if it was a half job.
You personally, right? What do you think happened to Kim Porter?
If I say something personal, bro, and my belief, and I put it on to the public, then I might be liable.
Prosecutors now had additional unsettling testimony from Cassie. She made it clear she didn't want to take part in the so-called freak-offs. She even mentioned that, to avoid angering Diddy, she brought it up in a calm and respectful way. A sign of the fear she felt. But once again, this isn't just about her emotions. The jury needs to hear exactly what Diddy said or did to make her feel pressured. That's the critical piece still missing.
Alleged criminal enterprise and how, based on the opening statement from yesterday, he didn't just have staff who were helping him commit the crimes, but also covering them up. Just now, an update from court. Prosecutor asks Cassie Ventura, how would he keep tabs on you? To which she apparently responds, he didn't live far apart. We didn't live far apart. He'd send security to come find me or a trusted assistant. Like who? David James, Christina Coram, who we all know has been a central figure in this case. Maybe not the criminal case, but she's come up in lawsuits before. The prosecutor asks her, was your relationship exclusive? Ventura replies, no. If she's naming names like David James or Christina Coram, do they have to testify, you think?
I don't think they have to testify, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I would think this is all planned out, that she's going to indicate some people and then the prosecution is going to bring them in later in the trial to verify, right? One thing you really want to do with a witness like this, the defense is going to say that she's embellishing. they might say she's lying, but that's going to be a little hard to do with that video, right? They can't just say she's a liar. But they're going to say she's exaggerating, she's embellishing, they're painting it a certain way because of the case. So you have to bring in these corroborating witnesses and whatever other corroborating evidence you have to verify what it is she's saying. So it would be very useful, for example, if she says, yes, David James came around to check on me on behalf of Mr. Combs, and then David James takes the stand and says, yes, I did that. Yeah. It would be helpful.
I'm anti-establishment, so I can never be the establishment. You know what I mean? Like, even if I'm at the Diddy party, I'm there to tell. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm there to see who the is in here and what do y'all get from being in here.
With a play. If you do it for real, here it is, Kevin. I got a show at your hometown in Philly. I'm gonna take my special there. On that stage, we can put whatever you want. They put the drugs in the baby oil. You thinking you get the massage, you can't even get up.
Cassie testified that during the so-called freak-offs, Diddy, or people he directed, urinated on her. When the prosecutor asked, "Was that what you wanted?" Cassie replied firmly, "No, it was disgusting. I choked. That was never something I wanted anyone to do." She insisted it was obvious she didn't want it. When asked why she didn't say no directly, things got more complicated. This opens the door for the defense to push back, asking whether she ever clearly said no, or whether Diddy actually forced her. That's where the law steps in. It focuses on evidence of threats or coercion. Cassie also admitted she never verbally said stop or gave permission, which creates a gray area the defense will likely try to exploit. Adding another layer to this complex case, Cassie, who's now visibly pregnant and expecting her third child, will draw close attention from the jury. We can't predict how jurors will interpret her presence or testimony, but it's their duty to weigh all evidence fairly before reaching a verdict. As for the controversial freak-off videos, prosecutors acknowledged they'd be shown, though the defense claims the footage came from Cassie's own phone and wasn't collected through a government investigation. They aim to question her motives for keeping the videos and continue to argue that this case revolves around personal drama, money, infidelity, and broken relationships. However, the prosecution maintains that multiple witnesses will testify they were abused, kicked, punched, drugged, and coerced into sex.
It'll be interesting to see how they react and respond to the alleged victim, Cassie Ventura, because she is expecting her third child and is clearly pregnant. So how jurors will kind of see that or visually how they take that into consideration, we don't know. But really, they're supposed to make sure that they stay fair and impartial and pay attention to the facts, which is something even the judge warned them about before they were official jurors.
Diddy maintains his innocence against all charges brought against him. Cassie, the prosecution's key witness in the case against the embattled mogul.
The defense acknowledged that the videos of alleged freak-offs will be shown, but that those videos, they said, didn't come from the government's investigation so much as it came directly from Cassie's phone. But they were essentially trying to raise doubt about why did she hold on to these videos, and again making this argument that this case is about love and infidelity and money. But the prosecution is saying, no, you will hear from witnesses that will tell you that they were abused, they were kicked, they were punched, they were coerced to taking drugs and to performing sex acts. So this is only the beginning. People have seen that 2016 video of Sean Combs assaulting his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. And the defense said, listen, what you witnessed was wrong. It was inhumane. It was horrible. But that was domestic violence. And they said that is not criminal enterprise. That is not racketeering. But both sides sort of making those compelling arguments and opening statements that for the prosecution, that he is guilty. For the defense, obviously saying that he's not guilty of these crimes that he's alleged to have committed.
Cassie's husband, Alex Fine, stepping out in support against the defense's wishes. The judge ruling he'll have to leave should an alleged 2018 rape Cassie accuses Diddy of comes up, after Diddy's lawyers noted they may call him as a witness, claiming he sent the rapper a threatening text over the alleged incident.
We know that according to previous hearings, she could be on that stand for 2 to 3 days.
Cassie described to the jury how she became involved in the so-called freak-offs, claiming that Combs was the one who orchestrated them. She said he acted like the director of these 72-hour-long events, which stretched across 4 intense days. Over the years, her role shifted, from initially just helping to organize the first event to something far more complicated and disturbing.
Were these freak-offs orchestrated?
So Cassie kind of walked the jury through what her role was in the freak-offs and how she said that Combs had choreographed them. He was the director in charge. And what she described was that these freak-offs lasted from 36 to 72 hours. The longest one, she said, lasted 4 days. And through that period, she said her role had evolved from initially Combs setting up the first one to then it becoming essentially her job. These freak-offs, she said, were occurring weekly. And what she was responsible for was finding these escorts, using Craigslist, some of these other escort services, helping them travel to certain locations from Miami to Ibiza to New York to LA to Las Vegas, and that she worked with Combs's business travel people in order to move people around, saying that they would project that they were potential employers and getting them to move. But she said that he had everything to do with what she was wearing. She said she would buy outfits from sex shops and see which one he wanted her to wear. And then inside the actual hotel rooms, their apartments where the freak-offs took place, she said that Combs was in charge of lighting. It began with candles. It then moved to studio lighting, that he was directing how they moved from each action of each sexual act in these freak-offs, and even the amount of baby oil that they were wearing. She said that he wanted them to be glistening, and so he would often encourage them to put on more baby oil. And then part of that testimony, she said, was that she had engaged and used numerous, including ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, cocaine, marijuana. And the prosecution showed text messages where before a freak-off, she is texting Combs asking, which colored pill do I take from your Louis Vuitton med bag? And he directed her which one.
Now, let's talk about the issue of domestic violence. Cassie alleged that Diddy subjected her to serious physical abuse. At one point, she said the situation became so severe that she had to hide out in a motel for an entire week just to let her injuries heal. And of course, the public has already seen the video showing him physically attacking her, something she told reporters seemed almost unreal, even to her. Focusing on that motel incident, she described it as nothing short of brutal. Interestingly, even Diddy's legal team has acknowledged there was abuse. But here's where things get complicated. This case isn't solely about domestic violence. It centers around coercion and trafficking. Diddy's defense is trying to argue that while there were altercations, the relationship was mutual in its volatility, that both sides were involved in the conflict.
I tell you that immediately, the moment she opened her mouth, you could see that Combs was listening intently to everything that she has to say, as well as those jurors. People know that she was that star witness, the key person in all of this. When you think about that civil suit that came out in 2023, that was settled the day after, she really is the person that connects all the dots. When you look at the indictment and you look at some of the charges, she's the one talking about the freak-offs and what was involved and how she had to act. The prosecution is asking her questions to show that she wasn't in control. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
And at some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced as well.
She's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better.
ChatGPT said when prosecutors asked Cassie if she had ever enjoyed the freak-offs, specifically why she once said she looked forward to the event, she broke down emotionally. She admitted she did say that, but only because it meant she could spend time alone with Combs, someone she deeply loved. This goes beyond just physical abuse. It highlights the psychological torment she endured. It's clear she's revealing the story of a young woman who was emotionally vulnerable and influenced by her dreams of building a career in the music industry.
She was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Gosh, it's so difficult to hear all of these details. And since taking the stand, Cassie has been emotional. What made Cassie emotional on the stand?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting...
Ventura is sharing new details about her relationship with Sean Diddy Combs. While testifying against her ex in his sex trafficking trial, the pregnant singer, who is currently expecting her 3rd child with husband Alex Fine, reveals to the jury that there was actually an overlap for when she and the late Kim Porter dated the rap mogul. Port Ventura says, per NBC News, that she and Combs first started their physical relationship when they went on a trip to Miami. It was when they returned home that they began spending more time together, though the relationship was, quote, not public for many years. Ventura adds that Combs didn't want it to, quote, look bad, but also knew it was because of his children and personal things like his family. When she was asked who he was with at the time, Ventura replies, quote, Kim Porter. Combs and Porter, who unexpectedly died in 2018, reportedly dated on and off from 1994 to 2007, with them becoming parents to son Christian, twin daughters Delilah and Jessie, and Porter's son Quincy, whom she had from a previous relationship. Their romance ended in 2007, with her choosing to pack up all of her belongings and move out of their home while Combs was out of town. Porter has previously said to Essence magazine that she wanted it to be, quote, dramatic, adding, quote, if I pack up everything, twins and all, it means I'm out. Puffy's an action person, not a talk person. Ventura and Combs reportedly dated from 2007 to 2018, with her sharing after their romance that he was frequently violent towards the end of their relationship. Last May, a 2016 video of the rapper assaulting her surfaced. In hotel surveillance video published by CNN, Combs was seen chasing the singer down a hotel hallway before grabbing her, pulling her to the ground, and kicking her multiple times. The footage appeared to match up with an alleged incident detailed in the singer's lawsuit filed against the Grammy winner.
I don't really want, and Puff did that play fighting stuff that he always do, and that pillow fighting stuff, and probably smothered her. But I wouldn't say that on the air. I wouldn't let people know that he probably smothered her to death, and because she had a bad cold or she felt some kind of way that she died doing them having that play fight with the pillow fights and everything, and smothered her. But I'm not gonna say nothing like that on the program, because I don't want to get myself in trouble. as far as saying that with him and say, oh, he said this and he said that. Nah, I'm just being facetious. I'm just being sarcastic that if, and everything like.
Diddy's 3 daughters reportedly left the courtroom on 2 separate occasions, visibly shaken. One moment that deeply disturbed many was when the trial delved into disturbing details involving baby oil, prompting the young girls to walk out. It may be one of the most heartbreaking scenes of the trial so far. You have to wonder, what kind of father insists on having his young daughters present during a trial filled with such graphic, distressing accusations? Sources say Diddy wanted them there to help maintain a positive public image, despite his team warning that the trial could become intense and damaging. Insiders now reveal that Diddy's daughters, Chance, Jessie, and Delilah, are struggling under the weight of the media attention. They're reportedly experiencing panic attacks, facing bullying, and even undergoing therapy. Some are asking, could these girls be starting to connect the dots? Possibly remembering or realizing things from their past, like how Diddy may have treated their mother, Kim Porter. Meanwhile, Diddy seems to be following a familiar PR playbook, often used by powerful figures in trouble, reading the Bible in court to appear more spiritual? Check. Blaming it all on a confused phase of life? Check. Using children as props to influence the jury's perception? Check. But here's the disturbing twist. His daughters are paying the emotional price for his public image cleanup. During one particularly intense moment in court, when details of the freak-offs were described, Jessie and Delilah reportedly broke down and rushed out. The adult spectators were visibly stunned, and the courtroom fell silent. The prosecution had just called its first witness, Israel Flores, a security officer at the Intercontinental Hotel in March 2016. He testified that he received a call about a woman in distress and found Diddy and Cassie in the elevator lobby. He chose to walk them back to their room instead of alerting the authorities, thinking neither wanted to press charges. Flores also revealed that Diddy tried to slip him hush money in an envelope, which he declined. But when he later saw Cassie leave with a bruised, swollen eye, he regretted not going to the police. Cassie later claimed in her lawsuit that Diddy paid off people, including law enforcement, to stay silent about what he did to her. It raises a haunting question. How many times did she seek help only to be turned away? Either because people were scared or because they'd already been bought. Then came an even more disturbing testimony from the prosecution's second witness, Daniel Phillip, an escort. Daniel testified that he was paid between $4,000 and $6,000 for each freak-off he participated in with Cassie. Diddy, he said, would watch from the corner, giving instructions on what roles to play and what positions to assume. Daniel also said Diddy would sometimes instruct him not to use protection with Cassie, and even told him where and how to finish. Feeling uncomfortable, Daniel said he would pretend to comply. Still, Diddy would check to make sure he followed his orders. It didn't stop there. Daniel claimed Diddy also forced him to perform degrading acts with Cassie, including urinating on her, something Cassie clearly did not consent to. Even when she was coughing and gasping for air, Diddy refused to stop. Daniel shared that Cassie was the one who scheduled their meetings and that Diddy always recorded them, sometimes for as long as 10 hours. He once even took a photo of Daniel's driver's license as a threat, warning of consequences if he ever spoke out. The most chilling part? Daniel said he witnessed Diddy physically abusing Cassie, dragging her by the hair, throwing bottles at her, and leaving her face bruised and battered. Each revelation added a new, more twisted layer to a case that's already shaking the courtroom and the public to its core.
Male escort. He detailed his encounters with Diddy and Cassie, and he talked about the fact that Diddy liked to pleasure himself while watching Daniel and Cassie doing their thing. This was so graphic, apparently, Diddy's 3 daughters twice got up and left the courtroom. He talked about baby oil, how Diddy wanted him to rub baby oil all over Cassie and Cassie to rub it all over him.
ChatGPT said, during the trial, deeply disturbing details were revealed, including how Diddy would reportedly pour baby oil over Cassie and instruct her to rub it on him. The vividness of these testimonies was enough to move anyone to tears. So, it's no surprise that Diddy's children, especially Chance, Delilah, and Jessie, found the allegations unbearable. Sources say the twins in particular are struggling emotionally and are reluctant to attend the trial because of the trauma it's causing. During Daniel Phillip's testimony, the children reportedly left the courtroom and only returned when they felt emotionally ready. When Cassie took the stand, 8 months pregnant, Her testimony intensified the courtroom atmosphere. As the prosecution's key witness, Cassie reaffirmed everything from her prior lawsuit, recounting the daily fear she lived in for over a decade. She spoke about her aspirations when she first joined Diddy's company, explaining how she had written hundreds of songs under his label, yet only a few were released, and she was never paid for any of the 9 albums she was contracted to create. Beyond her stalled music career, Diddy allegedly maintained complete control over her personal life. Cassie testified that she was constantly monitored by his loyal associates, including Christina Carorum and David James, who would ensure she couldn't escape his grip. Even if she tried to leave or date someone else, Diddy would track them down, threaten them, or even destroy their cars, despite the fact that he was seeing other women. According to Cassie, she was forced to prioritize freak-offs over her career, and had to use whatever time she had left to recover between those events. Her testimony also referenced disturbing videos collected over the years by Diddy, which were shown only to the jury and legal teams due to their extremely graphic nature. In addition, jurors were presented with photographic evidence of Cassie's injuries from multiple alleged assaults. One particularly harrowing incident she recounted involved Diddy dragging her out of a party and beating her so severely that she tried hiding in a bathroom behind a toilet, only for him to follow and continue the assault. She suffered a split lip, swollen bruises, and head injuries. Injuries so severe that Diddy's own security team and even his manager reportedly cried upon seeing her condition. She was given an ice pack for relief, and because such incidents were frequent, she always kept bruise cream on hand. Diddy allegedly insisted she cover her injuries with makeup when around his friends and children. On other occasions, Cassie testified, she was confined to hotel rooms for extended periods. While her wounds healed and was denied visits to her mother, her testimony was heartbreaking and extensive, and she hasn't even finished yet.